perspectives on the mentoring side of the relationship from the faculty perspective as well as the student perspective. We're excited that we have some mentors with us today as well as students that reap the benefits of those mentorships as well. We're going to talk about different styles and structures of mentor pairings at different institutions. We'll try and establish that at the beginning so you can decide kind of which structure looks the most like yours, and so maybe which person's perspective is most identifiable to you and your curriculum. And then we'll also try to focus on factors influencing successful mentoring relationships, and really try and highlight those that you might can try and implement some of these practices at your institution. Okay, so the most exciting part of this all is our incredible panelists. I'll let them each go through and introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their role, how long they've been involved with LC, and things like that. Dr. Berger, would you love to start?
Yes, I was going to say, perhaps I should start since I'm at the top. So, hi, I am excited to be here. I'm Stephanie Berger. I am one of the learning community faculty mentors here at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, Heersink School of Medicine. I have been formally involved with our learning community program since 2015, and also have touch points with students in other avenues. So I'm also the assistant clerkship director, so get to see many students from that angle and then do quite a bit of career advising in the M4 year.
I'm Chris McGinnis. I'm from UMass Chan in Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm also Stephanie, almost the same time. So I've been a mentor for about 10 years. So I'm like, oh, 2015, you say. And also, so I'm now been a mentor for 10 years, and the last year assumed the co-director role for our learning communities. I also too work with different learners. So I work with fourth years as the acting internship director at one of the affiliate hospitals. I'm very excited to be involved. So thank you, McKinley, for all your hard work. This is gonna be an awesome discussion, I can tell.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ford Cleveland. I am an MS3, also at the UAB Heersink School of Medicine. Along with Abby, who will introduce herself next, we have served as the co-vice chairs of the LCI Student Council, and very excited to meet all of you and talk about why LCI is amazing.
Hi, everyone. I'll just echo pretty much everything Ford said. My name is Abby Aldrich. I am a third-year med student here at the University of New Mexico School of Medicine. And I really share the same sentiments as Ford and McKinley, and I'm really happy to be here today. Thanks for putting this on, McKinley.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys again for introducing yourselves. We wanted to start, like I said, by kind of talking a little bit about the structure and how getting a mentor works at your institution. Thought one person from each institution, both our faculty members, and maybe Abby could tell us how it works at your institution. I know some places do LC mentors, maybe clinical mentors, as well as mentors for actual careers. And some people do those all together through LC and in different ways. So if you could just touch a little bit about the different types of mentors at your institution, things like that.
Yeah, so I can start off in terms of sort of UAB. So the learning community program here is structured to where our mentors stay longitudinally with our students. I think you touched early on, McKinley, in terms of some of the challenges. And so I think the student mentor ratio is probably one of our biggest challenges. So currently in each class, each of us have really anywhere in between sort of 16 to 22 students per class. So collectively adding that together, you can see that at any one point in time, we can have anywhere from 65 to 80 students in our learning community. And so that is sort of the overall sort of structure that we have here. Outside of learning communities, obviously other mentorship relationships occur. But I think for the sake of today, it sounds like we're going to sort of focus more on sort of the structure within the LC program.
Well, Stephanie, I'm like, when you said that number, I was like, oh my. So UMass Chan, compared to you, I think we have like a smaller number. So our system is we meet our mentees 6 or 7 a year. So I have currently 29 because there's people who go to MD, PhD and come back. And then from day one to they graduate, I'm their longitudinal mentor. And in our role, we do career advisement, we do coaching, we have a portfolio we use, and then we also teach some early clinical learning classes. So I also teach them physical diagnosis and hospital sessions. We do some clinical reasoning. So we have a mix of that. It's funny because I can't even imagine, I having that number because we're very much like, I feel like I'm all purpose for my mentees. They have my home phone number. They text me. I can't imagine. So that's 29. I can't imagine 62 students, having that kind of all access. So yeah, that's amazing.
Yes, and I was also amazed at that number. At UNM, it sounds like we have a very similar structure to you, Mass Chan. Um, there are 4 academies and then 5 houses within each academy, and each learning community mentor gets between 6 and 8 students per class, totaling around kind of like what we were just talking about, around 30 students. And we also do doctoring sessions and clinical reasoning with those mentors. And then I'm a little in the dark at this point about how that mentorship goes career-wise, because I haven't quite gotten there in my personal experience in medical school yet. But I believe we have a match advisor that is separate from our learning communities. Although I wouldn't be surprised if our learning community mentors would maintain that bond with us and continue to do that. I plan on doing that with mine anyway. So.
Yeah,
Abby,
great.
very similar experience. Sorry, McKinley, one more thing.
Go ahead.
Very similar here. In the dark about the 4th year matching mentors, but I did just want to add that UAB also has a cool thing called the peer mentoring program that is kind of a branch of the LC curriculum, but it's more so run by students themselves. We pair up an MS2 with an MS1, and the orientation leaders and learning community reps kind of work together to find the best pairings. It is a work in progress. We're still trying to revamp and, build that mentorship longitudinally throughout all 4 years of medical school. But primarily now it is between the MS2s and MS1s. And yeah, still trying to figure out how we can encourage more MS3 and MS4 buy-in for that program.
I have to say, Ford, thank you. You actually reminded me, we have actually a very similar thing too, where the 3rd and 4th years are the peer mentors for our 1st and 2nd years. And they have guidance from the LC faculty, but really kind of like you guys are doing, you're really running the program. We're kind of advisors, but you're really doing like the real tough mentoring that I think the students really appreciate from their peers.
Yeah, it's very much so less like formal mentorship. It's more like, okay, MS1s, we're going to help you get through what we just did last year and kind of, share some fun little tips and be someone to complain about all the lectures too.
Or yeah, exactly. Or talk about this location or that location. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ford. That's a good point. Also, you might have noticed I stopped sharing my screen. We wanted to make this more of a discussion, just to let you guys all know that from this point forward, you're more than welcome to chime in the chat, unmute yourself, and ask questions. We've obviously got some structured questions here, but for anyone that wants to ask questions, please feel free to interrupt any of us at any time. I think I speak for all of the panelists when I say so. I was going to follow that up with, so what do you think at each of your institutions is maybe the most efficient part of how you do your mentorship program? And what do you think maybe your biggest weakness is? And maybe some insight into how you could remedy that or how other programs could make theirs look like yours if yours is efficient.
I can go ahead and say a couple of things. One thing that I really like about our program is it is rather intimate. So the students that I entered into my learning community with, there are some that have taken leaves of absences, some are doing their PhD portion of their education. But those of us that are still together, we've gotten really close. We've been through a lot together. And so I think the mentors kind of forcing us, if you will, to generate those types of bonds with one another and to them has really paid off now 2, 3 years later, where we're actually reaping the benefits of having close friends like that, people that we've known since day one. And I think that is one of the most beneficial parts of our program. Um, I would say weakness wise, I think we don't have a lot of buy-in from third and fourth year students just because scheduling is just so much different than in phase one. I didn't really appreciate that as much when I was still in phase one, but now being a third year, things are really, it's just a whole different ball game. And so middle of the day meetings that I'd like to attend with the learning communities at large and the learning community leaders is much harder to do. Um, and that's actually something a few of the other students in my class and I were trying to investigate a couple of years ago. And I think now that we're on this side of that coin, I think it makes a little bit more sense to us. But it would definitely be something that I think would be of a lot of benefit for us to work on and somehow mitigate.
Hey, Abby, can I ask you a question? Do you have structured meetings in your M3 year that are required, or are they voluntary?
We do have structured meetings within our own learning community or like our own class and our own learning community. And we have, I'd say, a biannual meeting with the first and second years. So there isn't too much of that type of interaction. We do have monthly meetings like for the third years and our mentor, just like a check-in, how are the rotations going type thing. But because the kind of the intimate relationships that we've developed, my learning community is having a holiday party this month. So that also kind of brings everyone together in a less stressful school forward environment, which is also really nice. So there's a little bit of both, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's so funny. There's a commonality. So one of our strengths is that longitudinal mentorship. So I feel like I really know my mentees. So we actually, fourth year, we do a lot of coaching, they do mock interviews, and we get them set. But I wish we had a little more engagement from our specialty advisors. I'm an internal medicine doctor. I'm not an orthopedist. I'm not an anesthesiologist. So sometimes because, we're here, it's sometimes hard to get other faculty to sort of assist our students because they really need, I'm a big fan of multiple mentors. I'm happy to be the longitudinal mentor, but it takes a village. You need a lot of faculty to really give you, the knowledge, the skills you need to do get the most successful, get the most out of medical school and get the best you can in terms of residency. And I know McKinley's interviewing and right now, and it's a lot, it's a grind to interview. So you want to make sure you're really prepared. But third year is like, it's really tough because the third year is like, we do really good. And then third years mysteriously, they're hard to track. Like we have meetings, but a lot of meetings, it's hard to do it live because people are so spread out. It's like, so we have them over Zoom and we're on Zoom, love Zoom, but it's not the same as like meeting and having a meal or seeing somebody or giving somebody a hug. Like the virtual hug's not the same as a real hug. So I really feel like that's the thing. I always am like, oh, how to get the third years more connected. That's my struggle too. And I think I'm curious if any folks besides sort of mandatory meetings have any unusual techniques or how do they, bring people in. I see one of my UMass Chan girls here too, Malik. You feel free to jump on in. So our wonderful Malika joined us. She's what is your official position, young lady? You're the president, right?
I'm like overseeing all of the 9 learning communities at UMass. So very exciting, happy to be here. I completely echo what you were saying, Dr. McGinnis. I think like as third and fourth year happens, people start like leaning into their specialties more. And I think sometimes that can be challenging when it doesn't align with your mentor. And so we love our mentor, but he's like peds ED and none of us are going into peds ED. So like there is some limit to which like advice can be given and mentorship can be given. And he's still wonderful and checks in all the time. But I think like it would be nice to have some sort of pivot or like some network of mentors that can kind of help field those questions that we might run into issues with. But
so that's something, and McKinley may be able to comment more specifically from the M4 angle, but at UAB, here's the thing, I think one of our strengths is, the learning community program is a course that our students get credit for. And so in terms of, coming to sessions, even if you don't love it, you have to because it's a requirement for medical school. And there's a little bit of leniency in terms of how many you can miss and what is excused versus not. And so from a third year standpoint, because it is sort of a course requirement, those still sort of follow through. I think one of the challenges that we've been, we're in a little bit of a pilot this year. So HearSync is probably not all that unique. There may be other schools like this, and that most of our students remain within the city of Birmingham for their clinical times, but a certain percentage of our students actually complete their third year requirements in our regional campuses. So those can be anywhere from an hour to 2 hours away. And we've got 3 regional campuses. And because, Christine, we agree. So Zoom has its wins and losses, right? And so sometimes there's just nothing like the in-person. And so we've actually trialed this year identifying regional mentors to then run those in-person sessions on our regional campuses. And so I think that's going to add that benefit. I think certainly a challenge knowing that I attended that M3 meeting this past Monday, but I was one of the Zoomers and watching in on the room is, that mentor just has met all the students and hasn't had the benefit like I've had to have known them for 2 years. And so I think sort of just another way, and perhaps we can report back in a couple of years as to if it's an amazing success or if we're still trying to figure it out. I think, and McKinley, I'd love your input or any students that are M4s. One thing that we do from a career advising standpoint is we actually have a very robust career advising process to where certainly if any of my students are interested in pediatrics, I can be that mentor for my learning community students. But for those that are choosing other specialties, the school really has created a system to where all students have to identify a career advisor in their field. And it's really sort of closely tracked within the medical school.
Yeah, that's what I was going to comment on as well. So like Dr. Berger was saying, we do have a robust career advising. So I am going into general surgery. I think we all know not a ton of general surgeons in med ed. And so my LC advisor is not a general surgeon. And so for me, I have selected career advisors. And usually those are the people that field my questions, obviously about the match, about interviews and things like that. But I do really enjoy my personal relationship with my LC mentor. I see them more as, like I said, like a personal mentor, someone there for me, during medical school, understanding the woes of medical school. Like, for example, I'm getting married in the spring and planning a wedding while also trying to match. Really lovely experience if you haven't tried it out. But so in that regard, we have like mandatory, so like Dr. Berger was saying, we have mandatory lecture style meetings all throughout our 4 years. But I will say I don't see those as much as mentoring opportunities. You're really not having any one-on-one conversations with your mentor. They are exactly what they say they are. They're lecture-based, professional development style meetings. It does, obviously, you're building the relationship by being there with your mentor, but I don't necessarily see it as a mentoring opportunity. But built into our first and third years, we have like mandatory one-on-one meetings with our mentors. And I love those. I think they're incredibly valuable. I'm just getting to spend 30 minutes sitting there talking about, anything you want to. They're very open forum. I would advocate for having those if it were reasonable for people to have them, biannually. I think they're so useful. They really make you feel closer to your mentor just because, like you said, it's a one-on-one conversation. You're there with them. I think that's something really valuable that we do. That I think is a huge strength of ours, even if it's not always based around, career planning, which I don't think it has to be. We also
McKinley,
go ahead, Ford.
I was just going to tie what you're saying into the message that Dr. McCarty had sent in the chat about the best way to ask students and ensure expectations are understood and met on both sides. I think those one-on-one meetings during the first and second year are extremely important to developing that relationship. You can gauge interest about what specific students are interested in career-wise, what they're struggling with in medical school, what they're doing well with in medical school, because we don't want to focus just on the negatives. And as a faculty mentor, using those connections that you have within your institution with other students that you've known from the second, third, and fourth years, and connecting that student and, with those people so they can, get non-research or research, connections or career connections or just connections within the medical school about interests since, you know, assuming you're not a new mentor, you know the other students from the second, third, and fourth year that might have niche interests that you could really connect with the first year. I know within my LC, I've met a couple of people that have an interest in like music and performing and stuff like that. And that's been a really interesting niche that I've been able to connect with within my LC. So whenever those like individual meetings are happening, laying down the groundwork, asking the questions like, what are you looking for? What am I looking for? What can I offer you? And what can I not offer you? And just kind of laying the groundwork initially and then following up with that over the next couple of individual sessions so you can check in and see if the student was able to make those connections, if they're struggling with anything personally or within medical school, and then kind of using that as a regular follow-up, almost like a patient and just continuing to check in on them and offering the connections that you can offer.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was a great answer. I don't know if Dr. Berger, Dr. McGinnis, either of you have any insights on ways that you discuss expectations with your students, whether it's at the beginning of your relationship or farther along when you're getting closer to career decisions, things like that.
Yeah, we have this there's something called PACES, where it's this acronym, just kind of every meeting. Everybody's like, yeah, I know that one. Where we like you sort of basically personal, academic, curriculum, so sort of run extracurriculars, but it's a good way to sort of so we have these meetings, and we have this wonderful portfolio that I really like because it sort of forces you to be a lot more deliberate and just make sure you're actually asking these things. I'm as social as the next person. I could gab, but then we need to actually have, I want this to be helpful and purposeful for my student, not this just chit-chatting with me, which I'm sure is lovely, but that at the end of the day, you want some product, something positive, a plan of action. So by doing this, like, sort of talking about like, oh, or I have like to-dos and follow-ups. So I challenge the students when we meet, okay, what are our goals for our next meeting? So we meet like, 3 or 4 times a year. So for instance, the first year was saying to me, yeah, I think I want to shadow more because I'm still not sure. I want to shadow more in dermatology. Okay, so that's our goal. More shadowing experiences. And then when I meet with them again, I'll say, how did that go? Oh, I couldn't do it. Okay. Oh, what were the barriers? Let's talk about or what did you learn from it? Or, I wanted to make some inquiries about summer research opportunities. Okay. When I meet with them again, so you're kind of accountable and I have follow-up. And then if there are things that are in between, like, oh, this is so frustrating, reach out to me. Let's nip this before this becomes a problem, but it holds us both accountable. Like so it's a little structure. It's not like a free fall, we're just going to chit chat. Like I said, I could chit chat for hours, but at the end of the day, you guys this is serious business being a medical student. And we want to make sure that you're actually getting the most out of this relationship. So I also take my students, I know Malika still on, but I love meeting at dinners, you guys. So I also take the students out to restaurants because I can't stand sometimes being in the medical school. I know sometimes students can't either, like, get me out of this. So I usually go to one of our local restaurants that you can, I'm very fortunate, you can kind of like, rent a room and they don't charge you extra. And then we can have our group meetings there, and then the individual meetings, I'll have a different place, but it's just fun to get out of school.
I totally agree. I think it feels more personal too. You feel closer to someone that you don't feel like you're in a business meeting with them, rather just like
don't you think there's something good about eating too? Like even if it's a cup of coffee, sharing something like coffee, I don't know, just sort of, I don't know, it implies like a different, like you said, a more personal relationship. And maybe that's silly on my part, but I don't know. That's how I.
Dr. McGinnis, I feel the exact same way. I think to UAB's benefit or credit, I think a lot of mentors do a really great job of connecting with students by offering to host events at their homes, which obviously not a requirement. It's a very, wonderful, selfless thing that a lot of our mentors do. And it really allows us to connect with their families, see them outside of the academic setting in their own home. And I think that really helps us connect with them and get to know them on a deeper, more personal level and makes us feel more comfortable asking them questions and reaching out.
Yeah, Ford, I'm just thinking about that because Christine, I love the gab all day, but I actually think that that's meaningful to create that level of comfort to where then the more honest conversations can happen. And so I think, day one, when you first meet your student or you're in the getting to know, I think it's honestly hard to have some of those more serious, because I think they're just not quite comfortable to be that vulnerable. And so I feel that many on this webinar will probably agree, but so often I have to talk to students about the panic that they've emailed somebody and they haven't replied back. And so what do I do? How long has it been? Do I email them again? Am I annoying them? Are they ghosting me? And the whole spiral, and you're like, they're just busy. Just email them again, get it to the top of their inbox. Like it's don't take it that personally. Maybe a couple of times, then it's not a good fit and we move on. But also, it's just that overthinking. And I know that they wouldn't reveal that to me on day one. But once I've gotten to know them and their quirks and personalities, and we've just been a little more relaxed, some of those real, honest, sort of vulnerable discussions can start to happen.
Yeah, I think you're so right, Stephanie. It's all about relationships, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a relationship. I was so my first years, it's only been a few months, but one of my first years texted me on the way home and said she wants to go to neurology. And literally 3 months into first year, she's like, "Am I behind the 8 ball? I don't have my summer research plan. I'm not shadowing enough." And I'm like, deep cleansing breath. You're fine. And let me tell you why you're fine. And she was so sweet. And she's like, "Oh, okay. I'm glad. Okay, I'm glad I feel so much better." And but like you said, it's based on a relationship. She trusts that I'm looking out for her. And this becomes really important in the fourth year. So we have our special advisors, but we do a lot of advising. And sometimes I have to break the hard news, like, you want to be a neurosurgeon, but I don't think you have the qualifications to do that. And I'm looking out for you, but that means I also tell you the truth, not just what you want to hear. And that comes from like a relationship. And if I don't have that with you, you're going to be like, "Chris, please, I'm going to go to somebody who's going to tell me what I want to hear." But then that sets you up for failure and to go to SOAP and all the things that we don't want to happen as mentors because we care about you. And it really is, I mean, Stephanie can speak to this. I really feel like when you graduate, I feel my friends are graduating. It really is so awesome for me. Obviously, it's extremely awesome for you guys graduating, but I really can't help but feel so proud and so invested to have this little small part of your success is so meaningful. So, as a mentor, I don't know. I know that you guys, kind of dovetailing it. A lot of my peer mentors are telling me they're kind of feeling very much like that too, like almost mini parents, because even though they don't have the longitudinal, they do have a different relationship of a peer kind of coaching, and students will ask them things that they kind of, even though I think, Stephanie and I are pretty mellow and chill, we're still faculty, we're still a little older. And you can ask like stuff like, "Hey, what do you think of this, this class?" Or, "Should I really use this study aid?" Or, you know what I mean? Like, where's the best place to get a beer? They're probably not going to ask Chris that, but they may ask, Kinley that because she knows. But and that's just like, that vulnerability is different peer to peer versus, even faculty to student.
Definitely. And I know, from personal experience, Dr. Berger is very personal, and it seems you certainly are too, Dr. McGinnis, with your students. Can I ask, what are some qualities that you see in your most successful mentoring relationships, the students you feel the closest to, the students that are willing to be the most vulnerable with you, that you feel like really reap the most benefits out of a mentoring relationship from you? What are the common themes you're seeing there? How frequently are you talking to them? What are they giving in that relationship, or vice versa, that is really working in the benefit of the mentor?
I think for me, it's sort of all about the trust. So I usually start when I meet people, and somebody said, this is not day one, but I hope I set the table of, I am here my whole goal in my mentorship is that we never grade our students. It's all formative feedback, which I think is pretty traditional with our kind of these mentorship relationships. So my whole goal is to help you. You will have many mentors, but I'm the one that I'm hoping, lead you day one to graduation. And I have your best interest at heart. I'm always on your side. Now, sometimes that means saying things that you may not want to hear that are truthful, that are going to help you. So I'm hoping we have that trust that I'm looking out for you. I want the best for you too. And I'm always there to support you no matter what. So I would say, so when they meet with the student affair person, I go. When they meet with a faculty or they want to initiate these contacts, "Hey, I want to, shadow with a surgeon," I will put an email out and then it's kind of, set the table for them and say, "Hey, this wonderful," it's amazing how many amazing students I have. Everybody's amazing. Look at those. I have this wonderful student who wants to, be a nurse. Can she spend some time with you? Just making those connections. And I hope that the students see, and I'm not Malik's mentor, but I have wonderful relationship with her. We're in the same house. We have houses too. But I hope that I convey that, I want the best for you and I want you to be successful and your success is my success. And I hope that that's, by doing that, I hope my students trust that I really am looking out for them and trust me with things of like, I'm not sure, like the imposter syndrome. I'm not sure I can do this. I'm not sure I've made the right choice. I'm not sure I know what I want to do. I'm not sure. I've had many people, I'm not sure medical school is right for me. Like those kind of hard conversations, knowing that they're not going to be judged, they're going to be listened and heard.
Yeah, I'm thinking, because I alluded to one of our struggles. And so I think it sort of circles back that we have so many students. I know that it is impossible for me to have this deep personal relationship with every single one. It's not realistic. And so I have to give myself some grace that I can't do that, but also just know that it's two-way. And so I think it really is, sort of being that general availability at the beginning. But I think the most successful relationships are the students, honestly, who sort of jump on it and sort of take me at face value in terms of my ability to be there for them. And I think a big thing, because the goal is not career advising, but it always sneaks in a little bit early. And then using the relationships that I have with my colleagues in terms of making connections has been, I think, a really helpful way. And it sort of is like a little bit of the viral game. And so just knowing about the various communication threads that exist, but then someone's like, oh, she connected me with so-and-so. And so then all of a sudden it'll kind of go along too. And so I think that is helpful. And it's like, I really meant it. I will tell you when I can't be helpful, but also I realize that sometimes, an email from me may get answered a little quicker than you, and it just is what it is, and don't overthink it.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had a question in an interview the other day that was asking me like what I seek in a mentor, like who do I want in a mentor? And it really got me thinking. And something for me personally that I'm looking for in a mentor is someone that's willing to be vulnerable with me, that, like wants to be committed to the relationship as much as I am. And not someone like we were talking about earlier that it feels like a business meeting or a business transaction. And so I think the mentors that are bought in and like really wanting to give into the relationship with their students are the ones that are most successful, at least from my perspective as a mentee. I just wondered if maybe Ford or Abby or Malika, if any of you had any insights into like what you're looking for in a mentor, or if anything particular stands out to you in the mentor relationships that you feel are the strongest from a student perspective.
I'm gonna echo exactly what you said about the vulnerability. When you said that, I was kind of sitting here thinking, I want to be paired with someone that I can be myself around, that I don't feel like I'm trying to necessarily impress, that I'm trying to put on a face. I want to be with someone that is gonna help me where I can. I can be honest, they'll be honest with me. And wow, this kind of sounds like a relationship. Um, and so yeah, just really someone that I don't feel like after the meeting, I could step back and I say to myself, I really didn't feel like I was honest there. I didn't feel like I could really express all my concerns because of, I felt like I was going to be judged, or I felt like they didn't really know what they were talking about. So a mentor that is going to meet you where you are and also recognize their own limits. If they aren't sure about something or they don't have all the expertise, I want to know that they would be willing to connect me with someone that could.
I agree with that. I also feel like honesty is really important. Um, I think kind of like what we've all already been saying, I don't want someone to just cheer me on only. Like I also want like when it's appropriate and when I'm like having a meltdown and freaking out about this grade or that, whatever it might be, someone to be like, okay, take a breath. But also these are the things that you need to keep in mind as you move forward. Um, I think that's really important. And then kind of what we were all talking about vulnerability wise, I think it goes a long way when the mentor is initially vulnerable with just like things going on. If someone asks, how are you? Instead of just saying good, how are you? Just like actually saying, I'm good. I've been having more back pain recently, and like I haven't been swimming as much. You know what I mean? Like that's something that my mentor said to us early on, and we all kind of laughed, but it really created a space where he was like, I'm gonna tell you about me. And I think being able to reciprocate that made it easier to reciprocate that, saying like, oh, well, my knee hurts and I'm having ACL surgery. You know what I mean? It just like as superficial as that is, it really is inviting, and kind of just echoes that vulnerability and establishes a baseline for um, like what is to be expected and what is to be accepted too.
Yeah, definitely. Those are all very good answers. I did have a question too that Dr. McGinnis, you might be able to answer, and I hate to call you in, Dr. Blakemore, but you might be able to answer as well. Just like what complaints you're frequently getting from mentors on your end, like for for example, like oh, like I have too many students or things like that. Where are most of your complaints coming from a faculty standpoint? Where do they feel they're spread the most thin, and what do you do to maybe relieve that? Or like we kind of said earlier, not all relation mentors are created equal. Some have more availability than others. So kind of how do you remedy that and even complaints from students as well?
Yeah,
Well,
I think sometimes it's funny. Oh, go ahead. No, I definitely want to hear this young lady. Shawna, go ahead. You please go for
okay.
it.
Well, McKinley, I want to say first off, you guys are doing an amazing job. I feel like I'm already like keeping some tips in mind for my own learning community. But a lot of the complaints we get from the mentors kind of echo what Dr. Berger was saying. So we are a much bigger program with many more students and possible to form a close relationship with all of them. Um, and the way that we get students to show up is by having our mandatory sessions where we discuss like ethics and resilience. And it's a good time for everybody to come together. But like you said, McKinley, it's not the really time for forming those one-on-one relationships. And so the mentors have asked, they're like, what should we be prioritizing more? Meeting with the students one-on-one and in smaller groups, or being the best teachers we can be during these ethics sessions? Because we can't give them more time or more money. So they're asking which way should they divide their time. And I think that's something that we're still trying to figure out because the students are asking for more one-on-one time, but the amount of students we have doesn't always lend itself to that. So I feel like that's the biggest complaint.
Yeah, I'm amazed with your programs that you have. Like, I just am still 60 something students. I can't imagine. So sometimes the mentors, like you said, not all mentors are created equal. And I think our mentors are awesome, but we have a mix of specialties, genders, so boundaries sometimes are issues. Like I probably am not the best example of boundary setting. I've gotten better, but occasionally I'll have a student text me at midnight and I'm actually sleeping. I'm one of these people that gets up early. So so one of my colleagues said, Chris, you got to say something like, unless the house is burning down, like, and you're in it, do not text me unless it's an emergency. If it's just like, oh, I couldn't get into this elective. Okay, you could tell me that tomorrow too, not at midnight. So just sort of like, if, and again, I think it's just because, and I don't really think the students mean anything like malevolent at all. They're up and they kind of lose. Sometimes you forget, like when you're in the zone, you're studying, you forget, oh yeah, this is a mentor with a day job. Like she actually has a job taking care of patients. She's not just my mentor. So it's sometimes it doesn't occur to them. So I give lots of grace, but sometimes my colleagues are like, kind of like you said, there's just enough hours in the day and they want to do the right thing, but they also have, a lot of priorities. They have their families, they have their practice. So just how to like make slice the pie. So all the slices get the attention they need. So that balancing act, some of the mentors find. And I wish it was like a great answer. I think our mentors, like your mentors, are all in. We do this work because we want to. We're not doing because we're making like mega bucks, because we're not, because we love our students, but we also have these competing priorities. So how do you balance that to make sure that you're giving your best to your patients, your spouse, your kids, and to your students? So that's, and I have the same thing, keeping all the balls in the air, making sure that, I'm doing right by everybody, including myself. Except I like giving yourself grace too. Sometimes I pass on myself, which is never a good idea. You have to keep your, health and your wellness there as well, a priority.
Absolutely. Have to protect your peace too.
I like that.
No, I think that's great. I mean, as devil's advocate here, you have to say, I mean, obviously your students have to feel close to you to feel comfortable texting you at midnight, though you hate it,
Well, I tell them they don't wake me up. That's the sad part. I'm like, well, you better, call me if it's a really truly emergency, because texting won't work. I am out, man. I'm I gotta get up.
Today. I was going to be impressed if a text would wake you up in the middle of the night. It certainly would not me. Also, Dr. Blakemore, thank you. I appreciate you impromptu asking a question. Um, just want to open the floor again. Like, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to send them in the chat. Um, but I was also going to ask if so about Dr. Blakemore, Dr. Berger, I guess Dr. Blakemore as well again. That what are some of the struggles that you face with these branch campus students? I know that so for the first, at least for our curriculum, the first 2 years, everyone's in on the main campus, and then after second year, they go third year to a different campus, and a lot of times spend some time fourth year on that branch campus as well. So how do you feel like that you kind of mitigate that and try and keep your relationship strong, even though you're not seeing them in person anymore, and you do have these, Zoom hugs?
A Zoom hug. I was like, is that a thing? I don't know. I don't know that so Dr. Blakemore and I are both regional campus mentors. So we have sort of the unique challenges of trying to continue those relationships. And honestly, it's almost like I can predict which ones are going to be easier. And it's all about what the relationship was like in the preclinical years, because those are going to stay strong despite the distance. And the ones that were just a little bit of a challenge, those are the ones that just sort of, history takes its course. And so I think one thing that we do here that I doubt is unique, but so our school has embraced GroupMe as the communication chat platform of choice. And so each of my classes, so like my ones, my twos, my threes, they all have their own separate GroupMe threads, and then I am on each one of them. And so depending upon, whatever it is, I'll just use that to sort of randomly communicate. So one of my M3s has a strong passion for a certain genre of book. And a recent travel, I came across a big sort of book display. So I took a quick picture of it and sent a message and just said something about missing them. And so I think just random ways to just sort of remember sort of the little personalities of the group to keep in touch. But it definitely is a lot more effort. But I can see into it the ones that I'm going to be will be great on the other side, and the ones where the relationship is just going to continue to be a little harder to upkeep.
It's so funny. So we have regional campuses. I'm a main mentor, but we have like GroupMe. I have one person on WhatsApp. We have all different forums. Like the class gets to pick what their little. I'm like, oh God, it's hard to keep track of, but I know what you mean. You put a message, happy Thanksgiving, which is lovely. But sometimes my students forget I'm on it. So like I think I forget because maybe they don't. Maybe they just want to invite me drinking. Hey, we're meeting at Murphy's for a beer. I'm like, I don't think they mean this for me. So my husband's like, what? You're getting like, I said, no, this is just like, this is for the students. I'm quite sure that this is not meant for me, but they kind of forget that I'm on it, which I think is kind of funny. So,
Christine, it might be meant for you. You should just show up.
I will say that we did have like, our house did have a meet and greet that I did go to that was at a brewery. So, but I think that was like the exception and not the rule. I do feel like, and some of the things like, they have different parties, like most student schools. And I definitely think some are pro mentors and some are meant for the students, and that's okay. And I support that as a mentor for sure.
I kind of echo what Dr. Berger was saying. It is difficult when they're away on branch campuses, and the ones that I'm closer to still reach out and text. We will do one-on-one. It'll usually be phone calls or FaceTime or Zoom with the students just to keep in touch with them, since they have their regional mentor that they're with in person. And then another thing that we do at our school is that all of the students, no matter what campus they are on, they all have to come to Birmingham for at least a day for an all class meeting. And so one thing I'm doing with my group is trying to plan a gathering at my house on that day, because I can tell them, I know you're here. It's required for you to be here. And come on, swing by my house, get some food, say hello, let's catch up before you drive back to Huntsville. So those are some of the ways to try to keep connected.
I love that. Love the mandatory vibe of the coming to your house. Speaking of, we have a question in the chat asking how you encourage students to attend mandatory meetings. I know at UAB, we are a curriculum-based program, so you don't show up, you fail the class. So that is pretty good incentive for most of our students. I didn't know if maybe one of the other programs was not a curriculum-based LC and could maybe answer this question on how you get students to attend mandatory meetings that may not have a academic, punishment, I guess, behind it.
I'm trying to think, our BAP, so we have these sessions called Becoming a Physician, which they're longitudinal, they're with your mentor group, and they're not, I mean, they're kind of mandatory, but they're not curricular based. So I guess if you had like a, in fact, I'm rescheduling one. We have one for January 3rd, and that's not great because it's right after the holiday. So I'm talking to my group saying, hey, do you want to meet like on the 17th? So we try to negotiate, but they're kind of, I mean, the topics are really interesting. So this topic is adjustment in the clinical year. So it's with my third years talking about their clinical experiences and just like, what do they learn as a group? And it's really nice. And like, maybe we can talk about this, like to have this familiar, safe place. Cause this is your anatomy lab. This was your, like, you've gone through with this group. So I think there's really a trust level that you can talk about, boy, I hated surgery, or I heard this attending and this really bothered me, or I just felt like I did not belong here. So like sharing those conversations. I also go out to eat again. It's like but I love the food thing. So we go out as a group together. So I think that makes it more enjoyable, and the students really try to work. But I try to be a little flexible if I can be with the times and the locations. So we meet in the middle somewhere. But we generally, and with that, generally, I haven't had anybody not go. If I can sort of be a little bit more flexible on my end. I've had mentors do this hybrid thing, which I'm not a fan of, the famous half Zoom, half live. I think that is terrible. Again, my personal opinion, because I feel bad. The people on Zoom live, when you're competing with live always wins. So the people on Zoom it's easier. They're in the background. You kind of forget they're even there because the people in the room are chit chatting. So I don't love that. I'd rather almost have it just as much as be a Zoom hang, Zoom hug than like this half and half thing.
I totally agree. I think UMass also does a really nice job of making sure that those like BAP sessions are relevant enough that students feel very incentivized to be there, and they're timed such that they want to go and they want to hear like the experiences of other students, which I think is really key in getting them there. And I totally like echo the same thing about having it be a safe space, like with a mentor that you know is going to not just listen, but like follow up with you and do something about it if something like problematic comes up or anything like that. And we do the same thing. Like if we don't want to do it on like the official BAP day, we'll like schedule it for dinner and like go out someplace. And I think it makes it much nicer to like share these experiences over like appetizers and drinks versus like in a classroom setting where it feels like you're kind of being forced to be there.
Yeah,
And
definitely. Oh, go ahead.
I was thinking, Miriam, I'm not sure if you can expand, but if it's across the years or if it tends to be certain years are more challenging than others. But I think at face value, I always worried about the attendance from the M4 just because their schedule is all over the place, and certainly the flexibility of sessions on Zoom. But I think the session topics are so targeted to their needs at that time of the year that the incentive is built in, that it's like, oh wait, we're going to talk about interview prep. I'm there. And so I think that's been sort of another added benefit, is making sure that we are addressing what their actual needs are and sort of answering there. So we've got Dr. Blakemore can probably speak a little more about this, but certainly, or even Ford or McKinley, I'm not sure if y'all are on it, but we have committees where the students actually review the curriculum and really provide input in terms of what changes need to happen for the subsequent year. Because at the end of the day, we want this to be meaningful for our students. And if the session's not working, then let's rework it or bring in a topic that's going to be much more needed for them.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I'm a faculty in New School of Medicine in Houston, Tillman Fertitta School of Medicine, and we just started to having our like community, and we had 3. We expanded to 6. Each of us have 35 students in our communities. And now we are struggling of how to bring them and make them to make one-by-one meeting or group meeting. We offer free foods, still they don't show up. So right now we are at the stage of how we encourage them to participate and help them. So as soon as they get engaged and they get participate, they are so happy and they email us back and appreciate the opportunity. But just have them all in one-by-one meeting or any group meeting is a challenge right now. But for us, is not a curriculum-based program. I will definitely suggest that to our director. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's a great session.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I think that it's hard, definitely in the third and fourth year to get that buy-in. I think Dr. Berger's exactly right. I personally, as a person who, has AIs, I have in-person interviews, I have, online interviews, I have a Zoom social every night of the week, not excluding Sundays, that I have to go to. It's very hard to get me motivated to want to go to, another meeting. Like Dr. Berger said, when it's, interview prep, when it's, things, talking about, XYZ, first year of your career, things like that, it makes it a lot more incentivizing to me to want to show up, even though it's a mandatory. I have to go either way. I definitely have a better attitude about it when it's something that I want to talk about, and things like that. But I do agree with what Malika was saying earlier. She was saying that a lot of times when it's a more informal setting, it makes it feel a lot more comfortable to students to because we do the same thing, like in our lecture-based series, we do talking about like hard interactions in the hospital, bad experiences. We get in small groups and we talk about it. And I think that, if when we're doing that, at a mentor's house or we're doing something like that, it's a lot more comfortable talking about that with a group of people you're close to in an informal setting than when you're sitting under, neon lights in a hospital, reading room or something like that. And so I think that that's important, and it makes it a lot more easy and accepting to students. But if no one else has any more questions, I want to give the panelists one last time to say anything if they have anything to say. But otherwise, I want to thank them so genuinely, and especially for our impromptu panel members who contributed some today. I very much appreciate you all, and the student council is super excited to have been able to work with you, excited to continue to work with you all in the future.
McKinley, can I just say, I'm blown away by yourself, Abby and Ford, and how awesome you guys are. So I feel like we should give you a round of applause for organizing this, for doing such a great masterful job of sort of seamlessly asking the questions and facilitating. So I'm really appreciative of being a part of it. So thank you. I want to make sure you gave yourself and your team, like all you guys, a big pat on the back and a virtual hug from me.
A virtual hug. I'm accepting. Thank you. Well, it's been a great experience. I've had a great experience working with LCI the past year. We've had a great turnout of new students. And if anyone on the call or anyone watching this recording has any interest in having students to join the student council, please reach out to Dr. Tariq. She can get you in contact with me to put any students you would like to on the council. We are always open and willing to having new students work with us from any institution, new, old, anything like that. So thank you all so much again for joining, and all of you that are going to be watching in the future. I hope you all have a great rest of for me, it's interviewing season and also holiday season.
Take care. Have a good night.
Yeah.